Welcome to the completion of the galactic tarot sequence. We've now arrived at the 0 card. And we are on day 79, which is also Zodiac 0. In my investigations of the ancient Egyptian land of Kemet, mythologies, understandings of the universe, they call this point NUN of the Ogdoad. I see this as the primordial soup, which is to say, before the beginning was the... So, in the beginning was the maths. Yeah. Before the beginning, the primordial soup. And in the same way, here is today's card. You see this? That's the background geometries, dimensions, positionings of how each of the cards within this whole collection was arranged. So before I could create all the different sections, I first had to lay out the dimensions of what was to be the set of cards beforehand. As in, I had to have my own primordial soup. So this is the card of today, is the primordial soup. And I relate this to NUN. NUN, the one of 8 of the Ogdoad. Having reached the end of this galactic tarot sequence, we arrive at the beginning, the 0 point, the place where everything originates and to which it returns. In the archetypes of ancient Kemet, this place of primeval waters was their netta god called NUN. These waters of chaos, yet that word had a different meaning back then. These waters of infinity flow through all. Every dimension or level of reality we have explored thus far, and the adventures ahead, all contained within this great ocean of the infinite. There is only one everything. I am that I am, that we all are. Blessed be the waters. 0 point. Today is also simultaneously Galactic Arcana number 21, which relates to the World card. And I relate this in the climatic codes to the ocean conveyor belt. And that's the card I associated it with in the Galactic Arcana, that's the new website that I've just been working on for all of this new information. And this is all the key information that will be extrapolated further in the 3rd book. So creating this card set, in order to find an order, find a set of parameters to express all the different geometries and ratios, there had to be a background pattern, which is what we're talking about today. The background pattern. The parameters of potential unfurling. We've mentioned the original 8 cell before, so this is a original 8 cell, but on a cosmic level, on the level of the cosmos, spanning millions of light years. The primal waters. Modern science has different terms for this too. They call it things like quantum foam or froth, or at least that's how I understand what they're what they're trying to theorize. And even in philosophy, the way we look at reality determines the way we see it. The parameters of our society determines the way in which our society molds itself. So this is a mold, yeah? It's a set shape, but it's a primal mold, and then through the primal mold all the other extra molds can be created in a pattern to explain them. So they all have their own section, and then each one is then unfurled to then represent these different levels of reality, starting out from the edge to the center. Yeah, the most levels of matter to mind. Pure mind, pure matter, and all the dimensions in between. So we've covered all of that. It's certainly a fascinating experience trying to express this all in such a way as for it to fit into the mold that our society generally considers the mold. I've never really fitted into any sort of mold, really. So I've had to create my own mold. So the shape of the universe is what we're talking about. And here on planet Earth, although really, should it be called planet Earth if 2/3 of the surface is ocean? Maybe we should call it planet Ocean, potentially. Planet Ocean. So in the tarot sequence in relation to the stars, we have now reached back to galactic center. So we've gone all the way around, and now we're back aligned with galactic center. And the moon is actually connecting with the heart of Leo at the moment. So this is where we've completed here. So that's where we are here. So what does this Galactic Arcana number 20 relate to? Well, during my investigations, the end of last year, when all the numbers started adding up, and I started to arrange all these different new scientific terms for all of these different natural cycles, one of the ones I found most fascinating was something that was expressed in many documents and documentaries, connecting back again to the ice cores, and the engineers who actually did the ice cores are the ones who actually talk about this. So this is first-hand information directly from the ice core engineers. And what they found was, in their investigations over hundreds of thousands of years, what we find is this 800-year lag between temperature and CO2. Now, this sort of information, again, a lot of the information I've shared isn't usually shared, or if it is shared, it's shared in different compartmentalized ways, whereas what I'm endeavoring to do here is to bring together, I would consider, the most key information that generally isn't included, all into one place to find how it all fits together as a larger holistic pattern. So this 800-year lag I found quite fascinating, and that then led me to find other information which relates to the primal waters. Primal waters, what are they on planet Earth? What's one of these larger cycles for the planet? Well, here's one black and white version, and it's like a ribbon really around the planet. It's a fairly massive current, 100 times that of the Amazon, and goes around the entire planet, connecting all the oceans, because really it's just one ocean, but not really separate oceans. So the one ocean that covers 2/3 of the planet has this gigantic deep ocean current, and it goes all the way around our planet, and it's both warm and cold, and the way it moves the heat and all the stuff in the water, including CO2 and all the other things which are actually in the water as well, creates warmer places. Like for instance where I live, we have this thing here, up in the North Atlantic, which is, what's that called? That's the Gulf Stream. So this is information which relates to extra reasoning behind the Gulf Stream, the shifting of temperature and heat across the planet, and as it's called, the ocean circulation. Just like our bodies have a circulatory system, so does the planet. But the planet is much bigger than us. Yeah, much bigger. So we're talking about an 800-year lag. Okay? Now, I've mentioned in my work already, the average length of an empire of humans is about 400 years. Well, this ocean current here, some say lasts 500 years, some say lasts 1,000 years. For the full circuit of a cubic meter of water to go all the way around the circuit, between 500 and 1,000 years. And they do like to round things up, these modern scientists, to roughly 100-year increments. So why is it important? Well, the ocean is 2/3 and it's much bigger, and the ocean also contains more CO2, 50 times that of the atmosphere, and the atmospheric is something we've spoken about already, and we've related how of the 450 parts per million CO2 in the atmosphere, maybe 25% is humans, maybe. But we have to realize that these gigantic circulatory systems are around for a bit longer than a human lifetime. So, the energy that goes in at a particular time, say there's a cubic meter of water that goes in down, when it goes down into the current, when it goes down, it's almost like a time capsule from 800 years ago, and when it's down, goes through the down area, and then it comes up again several hundred years later. Okay, so could this potentially be a lag in our climate sequencing? So, there seems to be a focus a lot in a lot of the information that you see out there, where they're just talking about a bit of time. And really, to understand these natural cycles, you have to actually zoom out further to see how the circuit completes, and go back to see when one of these waves completes on the different levels. Okay? So, right, the orders of magnitude is what we're talking about here. So this aspect of our climate exists on several orders of magnitude greater than the entire length of a human empire, multiple orders of magnitude over the length of a human lifetime. Okay, so it may well have a part to play in actually driving the climate in a very big level, because we're talking about an 800-year lag covering the entirety of the oceans, or at least this is the connection I made. I'm sure other people have made this connection before, But considering this lag in the ice cores, and we're talking about a holistic system here, so the oceans connect with the atmosphere, which connects with the ice, how much ice is built up, and the fluctuations in the climate. So the fact that this roughly takes 500 to 1,000 years, what's the average of that? 750. 750 is very close to 800. But could we maybe find a bit more of a precise number to represent this fluctuation? Well, it just so happens that if you take the 372 and the 391, you get 763. Now, that's an organic number. It's not a rounded number. It's not been rounded to a number of 100 years. It's a precise calculation of these fluctuations, which I've described in detail already. But this is how I see it, on the levels of orders of magnitude and with precision. Okay, because we're talking about a holistic system, so every part interrelates with all the other parts, and this number fits incredibly well with this ocean circulation. And obviously the oceans are affected by the tides, they're affected by the moon, affected by the position of the planet in the solar system, affected by the atmosphere. They all affect each other. There's no borders on the planet, and the oceans are bigger. And this is why this is the final arcana. The final piece of the puzzle. Here's another more descriptive version, and another name for this is the thermohaline circulation. Did I get that right? Thermohaline circulation, or the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt. Okay. So there's books written just about this. Okay. So this information has been around. I'm not sure if anybody's made the connection between this and the 800-year lag in the ice cores, but the one and the other can't really be separated since we live in a holistic system. And considering these numbers are so close, and these actually relate to the warming and cooling periods, they relate to our planet, particularly in the northern hemisphere, because they connect with the Greenland ice cores. Now, where does the top of this, where does it peak out? Yeah, it peaks out in the Atlantic, right next to Greenland. So, could there potentially be a connection there? I think so. Yes, I think so. I think that's fairly established, really, information-wise, calculation-wise. Like I say, I go by the maths, as that's the way I understand things. So, to me, it makes complete sense. We covered this one with the rising and fall of empires, which then puts it into three of these, either 372 to 391s, which is that pyramid, which connects with the Saros cycles, which is again another one of the eclipse cycles. So this is like a part of here, so that would be like a bit of that. Or it could go from here to here. Okay, but we're just talking about two of them in relation to this one. And the numbers add up. And the numbers connect to a particular place on the Earth. Greenland. And Greenland's at the top of the ocean conveyor belt. And warm water and cold water, that's where they meet. Yeah. And I'm not sure if this is theoretical anymore, considering how much the numbers add up. But I welcome anybody to come along, question it, and find better information. Yeah. So for me, this was like a really big revelation, making sense of all of this. It's been a long journey to get to here. And yeah. But by no means is this information exhausted. This whole collection of videos has been to further unfurl the Oracle of Ra book, which is a guide to the website, and my first book, but it also acts as a bridge to my third book, which is where I'll be going into detail all of the galactic arcanas to the nth degree, plus I'll include all of the major scientific papers, all the references to all the books that people have written, specifically on each of these different aspects, which I'm bringing together because I've found how they relate to the codes at the end of my first book. Because this 372 and 391, it wasn't until I was about 32 that those numbers came out of my calculations. So that's about 16 years before those numbers came out of calculations. And it's now about 7 years since then, for it to then go to this next level. And in between then, this has been bubbling away. So you see that there's this momentum now with this information. I was primarily in the first place wishing to give honor to our ancestors in their understanding of the cycles, the natural cycles. But I was just looking at the numbers to begin with. I hadn't made the connection with the climate because I wasn't looking for it. No, because I was just focusing on getting the numbers right in the first place without needing to find other connections. So I got the numbers right in the first place. Then I published my first book, and there was an eclipse here in Scotland for when I published the book. Okay, and then here we are 7 years later, and it all adds up. It all adds up with the most advanced science going on our planet, which has, millions has been spent on this. Right? Are we still in a place to argue with natural cycles? I don't think we are, because the planet we live on is much bigger than us. Okay, so there's bigger things going on, not just humans releasing emissions, which I thoroughly disagree with on all levels because I'm a cyclist. Okay, but everybody has their own life to choose their own path. Okay, primarily not polluting, as in making somewhere inhospitable to live. Okay, but we all produce emissions. I'm breathing in and out at the moment. CO2, it's not, it's not as much of an issue as they make it. There's other things far bigger of issue, like, for instance, nuclear waste, and decommissioning nuclear, that's falling apart because they're not taking care of them. That's the sort of things which I think maybe slightly more of a priority, because looking at the orders of magnitude, the amount of focus on the CO2, when our part of that is just maybe even for 25%, I'm not even sure if it's even 25%, it may be 15%, some people, 5%, not very much at all actually, okay? And these cycles are on orders of magnitude so much greater than even our entire human species put together, who primarily live on the edge of the ocean. 2/3 of humans live on the edge of the ocean, on the coast. That's where all the biggest cities are, where the most people are, is on the coast. Okay? So, I say all of this to emphasize the point that what we're talking about here are cycles of nature that are bigger than humans. And humans like to be in charge. Okay? They like to boss other people around, and they like to think that they're in control. Well, I'm interested in understanding the universe we live in. I'm not interested in trying to control it, Because in some ways, I kind of think that's actually impossible. Because it's that much bigger than us. Okay? It's the boss, really. The planet is the boss. Okay? We live on the planet. We're surface dwellers, though. I think, the historical cycle is essentially putting us in a place where, the egos have just become, too full of themselves. Which is, I think, a byproduct of creating an artificial time system, which I relate to the Gregorian. And, there's so much more to nature, to reality we live in, than just one time matrix. Yeah, there's about 80 in here that all connect, and they connect with nature on all these different levels. But this one, this ocean current, this is very important. Okay? Very important. So there we go. We have reached the completion. Wow. Any of my fluffy friends got any last words? Hey, look at Spike. Spike hasn't said hello for a while. How you doing, Spike? Yeah, what happened to the dinosaurs? Yeah, they were around, was it millions of years ago? Yeah. Well, we've covered cycles, hundreds of thousands of years, down to, matters of years. Cycles that we can experience within our lifetime, to cycles that are so far beyond our lifetimes in terms of orders of magnitude. The idea that humans are now in charge, they've got the reins of the entire planet, I think that's pure insanity. I think we've messed up the place, and we've made parts of the world inhospitable for our own species and other species, but we're not in charge of the planet. Yeah, we don't control the sun, the cosmic rays, we don't control the orbit of the moon or the other planets. Yeah, in a connected universe, in a plasma universe, no, we're not in charge. No, we're surface dwellers on a planet where there's all these different natural cycles that exist on multiple different levels and orders of magnitude. They're all so much bigger than us. So why isn't this communicated more? Why is there some sort of blockage? Yeah, there is. Yeah, it's called ignoring natural cycles, and particularly not seeing how the natural cycles fit together. I mean, it's not maybe as simple as connect the dots, but the maths, after a certain period of time, the maths just start producing harmonics, overtones, like I've shown in the different graphics, these different cards fit with other cards. The cards give you even directions. They say to go to solar 5 or lunar 5 or whichever, to emphasize the interconnectedness of this wisdom, which is from around the entire planet, and it's thanks to our ancestors from around the entire planet, which this ocean conveyor belt connects as a single ocean. There is no separation. We are a single planet, and it's understanding the natural cycles of our entire planet that help us to understand the reality we live in. Looking through the lenses of just one time matrix and nothing else does not. Yeah, it helps to maintain the status quo, but the status quo don't run the planet. The planet runs the planet. We're surface dwellers. Can't emphasize that enough. So these are our primal waters, primeval waters here on the planet. Well, the land I live in here, the Emerald Isles, it would not be the same place without this warm water current, Gulf Stream current, atmospheric, oceanic current, interconnected natural cycles of the universe we live in, be a very different place. But it probably goes through cycles too, just like everything else. Are we experiencing just, a wee bit of this and thinking that's the whole thing? Or have we actually tracked all these different positions throughout history and noted whenever things have occurred in history, when empires have risen and fallen, when famines and wars and all the different things that occur on our planet? Have we done all of that? Well, this is where the work goes next, is to greater and greater detail and precision. So until then, take care and bless the waters. Bless the waters. Thank you. Thank you, sacred water. See you again soon.